There is a moment in almost everyone's life when they stand in front of the mirror and ask themselves a terrible question. Who is this person looking back at me? It's not a question of physical appearance. It's something much more disturbing. It's the feeling of living a life that isn't yours, of carrying a name that doesn't fit, of inhabiting a body that feels borrowed. The feeling starts slowly, like a low hum that no one else can hear. It's waking up in the morning and feeling that there is a fundamental error in being alive. It's not depression. It's not sadness. It's something before that. It's as if your very existence is a cosmic mistake, a cruel joke that you can't understand. Millions of people carry this silent weight every day. They go to work, smile in photos, make plans for the weekend, but inside there is a question that never stops whispering. Why am I here? Why do I need to exist? It is a pain that has no name in everyday conversation, but it eats away at you like acid. This is the confession that no one makes out loud, the feeling that life doesn't fit, that there is a profound mismatch between who someone is and the world they have to live in, as if they were born in the wrong dimension, at the wrong time, with the wrong people around them. But what if this feeling wasn't pathological? What if it was, in fact, the only sane response to an insane world? What if existential emptiness was the first sign that something very important is about to be discovered? Jean-Paul Sartre spent his entire life investigating this black hole of human existence. He found something that goes beyond any self-help or quick therapy. He found a truth that can both liberate and terrify. Maybe we really shouldn't have been born, at least not in the way we were taught to be born. What you are about to hear may forever change the way you see the weight of being alive. It may be liberating, it may be scary, but above all, it may be true. Imagine a child playing house. She wears her mother's clothes, imitates her father's voice, repeats phrases she has heard on television. For a few minutes, she is living a life that is not hers, but it seems real. Now imagine that this game never ends, that the child grows up, ages, and dies still wearing borrowed clothes, still repeating memorized lines, still playing a character that someone else wrote for her. This is the cruelest metaphor for the modern human condition. Most people don't live, they act. They wake up every day to play the role of themselves, following a script they've never read but know by heart. The script starts early, very early. Even in childhood, when the adults around them begin to mold a child with seemingly innocent phrases. Be polite. Don't cry. Boys don't do that. Girls have to be like this. Study hard. Be responsible. Each of these phrases is a line from the script being memorized, a layer of the mask being built. In adolescence, the script becomes more complex. Choose a profession. Think about your future. Be more mature. Stop dreaming nonsense. The person hasn't even had time to discover who they are inside, but already has to decide who they will be for the rest of their life. It's like asking someone to choose a favorite movie before they learn to read. Then comes adulthood, and the script becomes even more rigid. Get a good job. Marry someone decent. Have children. Buy a house. Be successful. Be happy. These instructions come from all sides: family, society, the media, social networks. And people obey because they have been trained their entire lives to obey. Think about your own life for a moment. How many of your most important choices were really yours? How many times have you decided something because it was expected of you, not because it was what your heart wanted? How many times have you swallowed your words, buried your dreams, betrayed your instincts to fit into the mold someone else designed for you? The truth is that we live in a society of amateur actors. People who have spent so much time pretending to be someone they are not that they have forgotten who they really are. And worse, they have become experts at pretending even to themselves. They wake up in the morning and put on their masks automatically, like brushing their teeth. Sartre called this bad faith, the act of living as if we were fixed things, as if our nature were predetermined, as if we had no choice. It is the most comfortable lie a human being can tell themselves. I am this way because I was born this way. I cannot change because this is my nature. I have no choice because circumstances force me to. But this lie comes at a brutal price. It produces a silent anguish, an emptiness that cannot be filled with shopping, relationships, or professional achievements. It is the emptiness of someone who is living the wrong life, of someone who is betraying themselves every day. It is waking up in the morning with the feeling that something is fundamentally wrong, but not being able to identify what it is. It is looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back at you. It's feeling that the life you're living belongs to someone else, that you're just renting an existence that doesn't match who you are inside. Herein lies the terror and beauty of existentialist philosophy. We are not born ready. There is no fixed human essence, no instruction manual engraved in our DNA, no destiny mapped out by the gods. We simply exist first, and then we have to decide who we are going to be, every moment, every breath, every choice. This means that every time someone says, "That's just the way I am," they are lying to themselves. Every time someone hides behind "I have no choice," they are running away from the most frightening responsibility of existence, the total freedom to create oneself. That's why so many people feel they shouldn't have been born. It's not because life is bad, it's because they've discovered, even if unconsciously, that they're living the wrong life. The life that others have written for them. The life that is socially acceptable, economically viable, morally correct, but has nothing to do with who they really are. The character you play every day. The obedient child, the dedicated employee, the understanding partner, the successful person. Maybe killing who you really are inside. And what's even scarier, you may be doing it voluntarily out of fear of what would happen if you stopped pretending. What happens when someone stops pretending? When you take off the mask? When you abandon the script? When you decide to stop pretending that your life makes sense? What happens when a person looks in the mirror and decides to find who is really on the other side? The answer is not simple. It is not comforting, but it may be the only thing worth discovering. There is a thought experiment that Sartre liked to use. Imagine that you are standing on the edge of a cliff. The wind blows in your face. The abyss opens up at your feet. What is your greatest fear at that moment? Most people would say, fear of falling. But Sartre discovered something much more disturbing. The real fear is not of falling accidentally. It is of jumping. It is of discovering that at any moment you can simply choose to take a step forward. That is the vertigo of human freedom. It's not the fear of what might happen to us, but the terror of discovering what we are capable of choosing. At any moment, without warning, without reason, you can destroy everything you've built. You can abandon your family, quit your job, move to another country, start a completely different life, and no one can stop you. Not God, not society, not the laws of physics, only you. That should be liberating, right? But it's not. It's terrifying. Because it means there are no excuses. There is no destiny, no it was meant to be, no I had no choice. There is only you, your conscience, and an infinite responsibility for every second of your existence. When this truth hits the human mind, it produces something Sartre called existential angst. It's different from ordinary fear. Fear has an object. You're afraid of something specific. Anxiety has no object. It's the pure unease of existing, of knowing that your life is a fragile construct that can crumble at any moment. Not because the world is cruel, but because you can choose to crumble it. It's waking up in the morning and realizing that even the decision to continue living is a choice you make every second. No one is forcing you to exist. No one is forcing you to keep your commitments, your relationships, your identity. You choose all of this constantly, without ever stopping. And here lies one of Sartre's most disturbing discoveries. Most people can't handle this responsibility. They prefer to believe that they are victims of circumstances, that they have no choice, that they were born this way, or that life is just like that. It's easier to feel powerless than to assume that you are completely responsible for who you have become. Think about your own excuses. I can't change jobs because I need to pay the bills. I can't end this relationship because I don't want to hurt anyone. I can't follow my dreams because I'm too old. I can't be different because that's how I was raised. Each of these statements is a desperate attempt to escape the absolute freedom you carry within you. But Sartre wasn't interested in judging this escape. He understood that total freedom is an almost unbearable burden. Imagine waking up every day knowing that you are solely responsible for giving meaning to your existence, that there is no manual, no God, no fixed human nature to guide you, that you need to invent your own values, create your own purpose, justify your own presence in the world. If you've made it this far in this video, you've probably already felt flashes of this vertigo. Moments when you realize that your life could be completely different if you made different choices. Moments when the weight of personal responsibility hit you like a punch in the stomach. The question is, what to do with this discovery? How do you live knowing that you are condemned to be free, as Sartre said? How do you build an authentic life when there is no guarantee that you are making the right choices? The answer is not to deny the anguish or pretend it doesn't exist. The answer is to learn to dance with it, to transform the terror of freedom into fuel for a life worth living. But before we get there, we need to understand why this existential angst often manifests itself as a deep emptiness, as a feeling that life has no meaning. We need to look into the abyss and understand that sometimes it looks back at us. The first time someone truly feels existential emptiness, it's as if the ground disappears from under their feet. It's not sadness. It's not depression in the clinical sense. It's something earlier and more fundamental. It's the sudden discovery that nothing you believed about life was really solid. It's waking up on a random Tuesday and realizing that your routines are arbitrary, your goals are mental constructs, and your identity is a fiction you tell yourself. It's looking at your own existence as if for the first time and asking, why this? Why me? Why now? This experience has a name in existentialist philosophy: nausea. Not physical nausea, but ontological nausea. The nausea of existence, the visceral revulsion at reality itself. Sartre described this in his most famous novel, where the protagonist becomes literally nauseated upon realizing that things simply exist, without reason, without purpose, without justification. But here is the paradox that most people fail to see. This emptiness is not the problem. This emptiness is the solution. Think of a house built on rotten foundations. You can spend years decorating the rooms, changing furniture, painting walls. But as long as the foundations are weak, the whole house is in danger of collapsing. Existential emptiness is like a crack that appears in the wall and forces you to look at the foundations of your life. It's uncomfortable, it's scary, but it's also the only real opportunity to build something solid. Modern society is afraid of emptiness. It creates millions of distractions so that people never have to face it. Social media that consumes hours of the day, jobs that keep the mind busy, consumption that promises happiness, relationships that fill the silence. All so that no one has to stop and face the simplest and most terrifying question of existence. What do I really want out of life? But when emptiness finally appears, and it always does, the instinctive reaction is to try to fill it as quickly as possible. People rush after new hobbies, new relationships, new professional goals, new philosophies of life, anything to avoid being alone with the silence inside. Sartre suggested the opposite: sit with the emptiness. Not as masochism, but as existential archaeology. Emptiness is not the absence of meaning. It is the absence of false meaning. It is the space that opens up when you stop deceiving yourself, when you stop living the life others have written for you, when you stop pretending to know who you are. And in that empty space, something extraordinary can happen. You can discover who you really are when you are not being who you are supposed to be. You can hear your own voice when you stop repeating the voices of others. You can feel your own desires when you stop desiring what is socially expected. Existential emptiness is like an artist's blank canvas. It's scary because it has nothing, but it's also infinite with possibilities. It's the radical freedom to start over, to reinvent yourself, to create a life that is genuinely yours. But here's the part no one tells you. This creation doesn't happen all at once. It's not a sudden revelation, an epiphany that solves everything. It's a slow, often painful process of trial and error. It's like learning to walk again, but this time following your own footsteps, not the ones you were taught to take. Many people give up at this point. It's easier to go back to the borrowed life, to the familiar script, to the safety of bad faith. At least there is the illusion of purpose, even if it is an artificial one. But for those who can stand the emptiness long enough, for those who can resist the temptation to fill it with anything, something magical happens. The emptiness turns into fertile ground. Nothingness becomes the space where everything is possible. And that's where real life can begin. Not the life you inherited, not the life they sold you, not the life you thought you should live, but the life that is born from the encounter between your radical freedom and your infinite responsibility. The life that only you can create, because only you can be you. There is a moment in every human being's life when they must choose between two doors. Behind the first door is a safe, predictable life, approved by others. It is the life of a familiar script, of fulfilled expectations, of a well-played character. Behind the second door is the absolute unknown. It is the life that needs to be invented from scratch, with no guarantees, no applause, no map. Most people can't even see the second door. It only appears when someone has already passed through the void, has already felt the vertigo of freedom, has already understood that they are living a borrowed life. It is a door that cannot be opened with ordinary keys. It can only be opened with courage. Sartre spent his life trying to explain what happens when someone finally walks through that door. It is not paradise. It is not a mystical revelation. It is not the end of problems. It is something much simpler and much more difficult. It is the beginning of total responsibility for oneself. When you stop blaming your parents, society, circumstances, the past, genetics, fate, when you finally accept that you are the sole author of your own life, something frightening and liberating happens at the same time. You discover that you can completely reinvent yourself. Not as cheap self-help motivation, but as ontological reality. You can literally become a different person. But this requires brutal honesty with yourself. It requires looking in the mirror and admitting how many of your characteristics, tastes, and opinions are truly yours, and how many are just automatic reproductions of what you have learned. It requires the courage to dismantle your own identity and rebuild it piece by piece, choice by choice. The person who does this does not become more comfortable. They become more real. They don't become happier in the superficial sense of the word. They become more whole. They don't eliminate existential angst. They learn to transform it into fuel for an authentic life. It's like learning to breathe underwater. At first it's suffocating, impossible, but then you discover that you don't need other people's air to survive. You can create your own existential oxygen. This means that your relationships change. You stop trying to please everyone and start connecting genuinely with a few people. It means that your work changes. You stop doing what you should do and start doing what you need to do. It means that your values change. You stop accepting ready-made truths and start building your own philosophy of life. It's a lonely process, but it's not a selfish process. On the contrary, when you stop lying to yourself, you automatically stop lying to others. When you become authentic, your relationships become more genuine. When you take responsibility for your own life, you inspire others to take responsibility for theirs. Sartre believed that this individual transformation was also a political act. Every person who stops living in bad faith, who abandons the social script, who chooses to create themselves instead of conforming, is making a silent revolution. They are proving that it is possible to live differently. But perhaps the most beautiful thing about all this is the discovery that, in the end, the feeling of "I shouldn't have been born" turns into something completely different. It's not that you should have been born, it's that you were born incomplete. And that's perfectly normal. Every human being is born as an unfinished project. The difference is that some spend their lives pretending they're already finished, while others embrace the eternity of construction. You weren't born with a purpose. You were born with the infinite capacity to create purposes. You weren't born with a fixed identity. You were born with the radical freedom to invent yourself every day. You weren't born into the wrong world. You were born with the power to transform any world into your world. And maybe that's what Sartre meant when he talked about existence preceding essence. You are not who you are. You become who you choose to be, with every breath, every thought, every small and silent gesture. The emptiness you feel is not a hole to be filled. It is a sacred space where miracles happen. The miracle of someone creating themselves from nothing, by free choice, in full awareness of their own freedom. What was the moment in your life when you felt most like you were living someone else's life? Write it in the comments. If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You watch the videos. You reflect on each idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to go with this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the codes of the White Rabbit are ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.